Okay, in this chapter we are going to discuss about Active Directory and Domain Controller in Windows 2019. All right. What is DC? DC is the domain controller. Please follow on the slides. Okay. DC is the domain controller. Okay. If you look here at the screen that you have, the PowerPoint, this is a screenshot of a domain controller. Okay. The domain controller is responsible for securing authentication of users to access the resources in the organization. In Windows NT, there was one DC per domain. It was configured as PDC, or Primary Domain Controller. And the others are called backup domain controllers. In Windows 2019, there are no primary and backup approach used. Instead, numbers are used next to DCs to identify priority. For example, we have DC1, DC2, okay? Now, when we talk about physical components of Active Directory, it is about how the network is actually connected, and the physical computers or domain controllers that store the Active Directory information in your organization, and how good is your communication in your network, okay? If you have more than one domain controller in the network, each domain controller stores an exact replica of the Active Directory database. Replica يعني replication, copy, updated copy. And Active Directory can support multi-master domain controller model. This means that all domain controllers get to have an exact copy of Active Directory data as a result of replication. Okay. So what is a domain? A domain is a logical grouping of users, computers, peripherals, and so on, and network services in your network architecture. And the domain usually is centralized. So authentication is governed by the domain controller. Yani when you log in, your login is going to the domain controller to say, oh yes, you can log in or you cannot log in. Okay. Here is the step. This step we are going to do in our lab. You see that step there where you put, they put duati.local. We are going to do this step in the lab. Okay. To install create the domain controller. A tree domain comprised of or is consisted of one or more domains. And the domains in the tree are linked through transitive trust. And with transitive trust, if A trusts B, B trusts C, then A trusts C. This is the meaning of transitive. Huh? I think you took this in numbers, maybe, or statistics. Anyhow, that's the meaning of transitive trust. A trusts B, B trusts C, then A trusts C. In a tree domain, when a new domain joins an existing tree, then the new domain automatically trusts all existing domains in the tree. It is also similar to adding a domain. The tree domain is configured during the promote this server domain controller process. This is what we will do in the lab, okay? Inshallah, we'll show you how to do this. The Active Directory tree is made from domains. The domain at the top of the tree hierarchy, for example, hct.com, is called the root domain. Okay. Domains created under the root are called child domain. So give me an example of a child domain here. Yeah. Okay. Windows domain naming follows the DNS domain naming to allow for smooth integration with the internet. So that's very good. Forest. What is a forest in real life? The forest عبارة عن what do you find in the forest? Trees. Same thing in Active Directory. Forest consists of one tree of domains. One tree domain or a collection of tree domains. So from that, it can be concluded that the tree domain actually represents a domain. Tree domain represents a domain which, if it is a root domain, represents the forest. Yani if this is the first domain, this is the forest. Then I am starting the first tree. لما أنا أزرع أول شجرة تكون بداية الغابة صح؟ It's the first tree or the root domain of the forest. So duwati.local, because the first domain, it is the root domain of the new forest. To understand the forest, look here at this example. We talked about two-way transitive trust. So here, what is the root domain here? UOL.com. Yeah. So, yes.
هل UAE.sct.com trust UOL.com?
Yeah. Transitive trust. Okay. So this is the root, and with this child domain, it consists, with these other domains, it consists a forest. Okay. HCT.com, and anything under HCT is a tree. Okay. UOL, anything under UOL is a tree with UOL. Okay. Yes. Not necessarily. So what is a child domain? Here we have an example, duwati.local and ittraining.local are both tree domains. However, duwati.local represents a forest, okay? And programming.duwati.local is a child domain. So anything under duwati is a child of duwati. Okay, easy? Clear? Schema. Okay. Some people call it schema. Okay. Active Directory is a hierarchical database that stores network resources as objects. The definition of all objects and their attributes is collectively known as the Active Directory schema. Okay. For any network, there can be only one schema in the Active Directory structure. The schema is stored on all domain controllers in the Active Directory network. Okay, so this is the, we ask you, what do you know about schema? You need to mention all this. Okay. Any questions? Understanding operations master roles. Once we deploy, once we install Active Directory, you will understand it more and you will find that it's not really that complicated, but it's very powerful. Okay. So we said that duwati.local is the root domain of the forest. Okay. And the machine that has duwati.local is called the domain controller. Okay. For that network. So ADDS, what is ADDS? Active Directory Domain Server. is being installed and the server gets promoted to a domain controller. This is what we will do in the lab. Okay. The first two, schema master and domain naming master, are forest-wide operations master roles. The remaining three, such as RID, primary domain controller, emulator, and infrastructure master, are domain-wide operations master roles. This is the operation master roles in the domain controller. This is how it is consisted of. I emailed it long time ago. Did you receive it? Okay. Any questions about this?
Oh, thank you. Everything clear.
Thank you. RID master takes care of assigning SIDs, which is very important. SIDs to DC. You know, when you sign, you have username and password. This is called SID. Okay. So this is taken care by RID master. The domain naming master manages the AD's domain namespace and ensures that every domain is unique in the forest. So this is the summary of single operations master domain controllers. Occurrence, domain controllers. One per forest, schema master, domain naming master, and one per domain is infrastructure master, RID master, and PDC emulator master. Okay? Of course, one per domain. We said that RID is taking care of what? Yeah, SID, right? Yeah, so each one of these are one per domain. And one per forest for the schema master. Operation master role also. Here, what I just explained in the previous example. Here we have the forest. What's the name of the forest? Duwati. And the tree domain is duwati.local and ittraining.local. If I have a domain called it.duwati.local, what is it? It's a child domain of duwati.local. As simple as that, okay? Duwati.local also should have its RID master because it's once per domain, one per domain, right? Don't forget that. And it has its PDC emulator and infrastructure master. Schema master is one per forest, but per domain, each domain should have one infrastructure master, one RID master, one PDC emulator master. So what is the difference between domain and work group? When you talk about work group, people always think about peer-to-peer network. Peer-to-peer network is before the client server. If you want to share, then you just share your printer. It's very primitive, there is no control, there is no security, and only for few number of users. If you have more complex, it will not work. Okay? So this is, here we illustrated this in this table. So this is the differences between both. Okay? What is an example for work group? Peer-to-peer network. what is an example for domain client server network. Okay. We are now in slide 15. So a trust relationship between computer and a DC and between domains. Two, there is trust between computer and domain and between domain and domain. And once a computer joins a domain, the security account manager, SAM, in the local computer trusts the AD's authentication mechanism. What is SAM? SAM is when you log into your computer locally, your authentication is stored. It's called a security account manager. On the domain, it's called SID. On the local computer,
security
SAM.
identifier of the local computer.
SAM. Yeah. So hence the user is being authenticated by a DC in the network. Once you are joined the network, you will be authenticated by the network, not by your computer. Alas, because you are now part of the domain. Okay. If a user, for example, if a user is authenticated in the domain duati.local, then its authentication is accepted by itttraining.local. Why? Because they are in the same forest. Good. And what's the name of the forest? Duati.local, the root domain. Functional levels. Forest functional level, FFL, and domain functional level, DFL. FFL controls which versions of Windows Server can run in the domain controllers of the forest. At the same time, it enables the available capabilities across all domains in a forest. Okay. DFL, on the other hand, control which versions of Windows Server can run. Okay. In the DC of the domain. And at the same time, it enables the available capabilities in that domain only. So DFL is inside the domain. FFL is for the whole forest. Okay. And they said here in Windows 2019, FFL and DFL is raised from to at least Windows Server 2008, because Windows Server 2003 is no longer supported by Microsoft. To check the functional level, you can do these steps. Click on the Start button, and then on the Start menu, click on the Server Manager, or there is an icon for Server Manager. Then you go to Tools, and select Active Directory, Domains and Trusts. Okay. You right-click on the root domain and then select Properties. In the Properties, you will find the domain functional level and forest functional levels. Okay, in the general term. Clear? Good. Namespace. So duati.local actually represents a forest and root domain. And duati.local or ITT training are actually 3 domains in the forest. And we said that Duati has a child domain, which is programming.duati. Okay, we have already explained that. But it is obvious that the child domain and the tree domain are share a common namespace. اللي هو ايش? You know, that part, duati.com. So we call this contagious namespace. contagious namespace. يعني they should have the father or the parent name inside their name. But we have something called sites, like a branch site. The site we have is a physical, okay. Yes. Yes, exactly. Branch. Yeah, here, if you look here, site represents a physical topology. Okay. So if you ask, site is a physical or logical? It's a physical, like a branch, site. Type replication. We talked about replication in which part? Do you remember? DNS. Also in Active Directory. Replication is a process that synchronizes the common directory partition among all DCs in the forest. Additionally, replication topology is a set of communication paths through which the DC replication data travels. All right? We already mentioned, talked about schema. And in the schema, you can find all the elements of the Windows Server, such as the objects, classes, attributes, okay, that define a schema object. A class represents the object type. The attribute represents the characteristics of the object. And the Active Directory stores the objects that are identified by their classes and attributes. Everything is stored in the Active Directory. Okay. And the schema represents the model that contains the roles of the types of objects that can be stored in Active Directory. And it is and then the replication that synchronizes the schema among all DCs in the forest. This is how it is designed. Okay. And this is all stored in your schema. You can also read this comments down. If you look down, you will have some information. And for example, a user object in Active Directory will have attributes, such as what? Attributes of a user. First name, last name, email, okay? Some of them you have to put them. You cannot leave it empty. Okay? Some of them are optional. Microsoft Passport. In today's technological trends, in which a user needs to log into a different environment to access applications or websites and other services, the traditional format of authentication, like username and password, is neither viable or secure. And you are using many machines, many environments. You don't need to put your username and password every time. Okay? Therefore, Microsoft has introduced Microsoft Passport. Microsoft Passport allows the users to authenticate to the DC without a password. It is based on the Fast ID Online, or FIDO, Alliance standards, and consists of two components: a single sign-in service and a wallet service. So we can deduce that Microsoft Passport is a two-factor authentication. This means if it's two-factor, it is more secure, correct?
Yes.
One factor if it's only username and password. This is one factor. This one is two factors because it is based on two factors. And the users will be able to prove who they are by providing something that they uniquely possesses. Yani like what? Maybe card, correct? Maybe fingerprint, okay? Maybe. Or maybe like these things, you know, numbers. Or... Installing Active Directory DS role, we are going to do this in the lab. It's easier to show you, to demonstrate to you how we do it. We go to tools and then add roles and services. Okay. But you need to, sometimes they ask you how, explain the steps to install Active. You need to be able to explain it, please. Okay, so click Start button, go to Server Manager, add roles and features, and then choose Active Directory and so on. After you add roles and features, and then you need to do promote. This is what we will do in the lab. So it's two parts. Add the roles, and then you need to do promote. Okay, these are explanation screenshots only. And yeah, these are only screenshots. Okay. Any questions? Now, I suggest while when you are doing this to follow from the PowerPoint, because the PowerPoint will be colorful, and you will see these slides much clearer. All right. So we covered all these slides.